Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet on the 14th of November 2025. I'm the Chairman and Leader of the Council, Mark Stevenson. We've got a packed agenda today, so I'm going to go straight into the agenda items. And the first one is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Leader. I can report apologies for absence this morning from the Environment and ICT portfolio holder, Councillor Adrian Smith.
Thank you very much. Second item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting, which I hope you've all had a look at and checked through. So I'm happy to move them. I need a seconder, please.
I'm happy to second that, Leader.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. There aren't any comments. Can I get an agreement on them, please? Agreed. Thank you very much. I'll sign them in a minute. Okay, the third item on the agenda is declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interests? I'll take that as a no. Number 4 is announcements by the Leader of the Council. On this occasion, I have none. Number 5 is announcements by the Cabinet members. And I think I've got one from Councillor Baker and one from Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Leader. Just a very brief announcement. At the end of October, at the Essex Housing Awards 2025 held at Highlands House in Chelmsford, Tendring District Council was nominated for an award under the small housing schemes, and we won, I shall say, and this is for Honeycroft, the development of Honeycroft. Quite small, but very, very important in my view, and it reflects on the hard work of our officers in conjunction with our partners. And obviously the previous administration that started it all off. I think we should credit them as well, but well done to all. And it was a what's the word I'm going to use? I think it was an achievement in itself that we had other nominations, but the opposition, but the other nominees there was some very, very high quality across the county, and it was interesting to see what else is going on elsewhere. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to share some exciting news that for our district, Tendring has been awarded £750,000 through the Arts Council England Creative People and Places programme. This funding will support Creative Tendring, a community-led cultural initiative hosted by the Arts Trust in partnership with Tendring District Council, CVST and the Harwich Festival. Over the next 3 years, this programme will deliver cultural projects, but this is about more than just the arts. It's about tackling isolation, supporting well-being and building confidence through creativity, and it's about putting culture in the hands of people, local people, celebrating what makes Tendring special. From April 2026, this will begin the development phase, working closely with our communities to shape projects here in Tendring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott. There are no further announcements. Okay. Item number 6, matters referred to the Cabinet by the Council. There are no matters referred to the Council on this occasion. And number 7 is matters referred to the Cabinet by a committee. And there are no matters referred to Cabinet by a committee on this occasion. Which takes us to the beginning of the items as such on the Cabinet report. And that's number 8, which is the report of the Environment and ICT portfolio holder, approving award of the waste and recycling contract and street cleaning contract following evaluation of tenders. Councillor Smith wanted to be here today, and I literally had to tell him he couldn't come. He's been convalescing. The NHS moved his appointment for an operation, and it wouldn't be right for him to come in, having only had an operation a few days ago. So, in talking with him, we came up with a statement that he'd like me to read out to everybody, and it goes like this. As we consider the future of waste and recycling collection and street cleaning and tendering, it's important to begin by focusing on what matters most, our residents. This contract underpins a service that every household relies on week in and week out. Our aim throughout has been to ensure that residents continue to receive a reliable, high-quality service with improvements that make recycling easier and our streets cleaner. The journey to this point began under the stewardship of Councillor Mike Bush, our previous portfolio holder. Mike's early leadership and commitment laid the groundwork for what followed, and I want to express our sincere thanks for those contributions. From the outset, our ambition was to secure a contract that not only maintains, but enhances the services for residents. whilst ensuring value for money and flexibility for the future. The process has been rigorous and at times challenging, reflecting the scale of the contract, the evolving requirements of national legislation, and the changing landscape of local government in Essex. Initially, we pursued a long-term contract. However, as the government's plans for local government reorganisation in Greater Essex became clearer, we adapted. The contract now runs for 3 years, with an option to extend by up to 2, providing both stability and flexibility for any future unitary authority. A key part of our journey was ensuring the contract remained within the Council's means. Early proposals from bidders would have required a level of investment that could not be justified to our residents, especially in the current financial climate. Working with our project team and external advisors, we reshaped the contract, adjusting the terms, refining the specification, and focusing on what matters most to our community. This approach has allowed us to secure a contract that delivers for residents while remaining responsible for public funds. Excuse me. If the recommendations are approved, our new contract will be awarded to Veolia, our current provider, bringing together street cleaning and household waste collection into a single streamlined service. Residents will continue to benefit from regular collections, with enhancements including the introduction of curbside glass recycling and the rollout of food waste bins to more households, making it easier for more people to recycle their food scraps separately from general waste. For most, the day-to-day experience will remain familiar, but with added opportunities to recycle more and contribute to a cleaner, greener district. We recognise that any changes brings questions. That's why we are developing a comprehensive communication and implementation plan. This will ensure residents are kept fully informed about any changes to their collection days, the introduction of new recycling streams, and how to make the most of the improved services. Our officers will work closely with Veolia to develop a smooth rollout, with clear, timely updates and support for all households. Financially, this is the Council's largest contract. The cost over 3 years is £7.796 million above existing budgets, which reduced to £3.359 million after grant funding. We have planned carefully, setting aside reserves and refocusing budgets to ensure the investment does not impact on frontline services. I also want to acknowledge the constructive role played by our Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Their recommendations to ensure a proportionate compliance framework, clear communication with residents, and robust contract management have been fully embraced and will guide our implementation. Finally, I want to pay tribute to the dedication and professionalism of our staff. The volume of work, the technical detail, and the need to respond to shifting circumstances has been immense. Their commitment has been unwavering, and this achievement is a testament to their hard work and resilience. In closing, this contract is about more than bins and street sweepers. It's about pride in our area, environmental responsibility, and delivering services that residents can rely on. My thanks again to all involved, past and present, and to our residents for their continued support and engagement as we move forward. And I'm happy to move the recommendations. So, I'll take that as moved by me, although the words are Councillor Smith's. I need a seconder, please.
Yes, Leader. I second this. I'm pleased to second these recommendations and add my support to the direction just set out by the Leader. This contract is about more than just operational change. It's about ensuring that our residents continue to receive a service that is reliable, responsive, and forward-thinking. What is particularly value in this Council's commitment to adapting in the face of this change. The approach taken has shown a real flexibility, responding to the evolving landscape of local government and the financial realities we all face. By shaping a contract that is both robust and adaptable, we are making sure that Tendron is well placed for whatever the future may bring. The focus on clear communication and smooth rollout is also vital. Change can sometimes bring uncertainty, but by prioritising timely and accessible information for our residents, we are helping everyone to understand what's happening and how they can benefit from the improvements. This is especially important as we introduce new recycling opportunities and collection methods, making it easier for households to play their part in keeping our district clean and green. I also would like to echo the thanks given to our officers and staff. The scale and complexity of this process has been considerable, and their dedication has been central to getting us to this point. Their expertise and commitment to give me confidence that their transition to the new contract will be managed with care and professionalism. In summary, these recommendations set out a positive course for the future of waste and recycling services in Tendron, and I'm proud to support them. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Henderson. So it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Henderson. I'm happy to open the floor if anybody wants to speak on it. Sorry, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. Yes, I'd also like to echo the thanks to the staff on this. I sat on that subcommittee. The only perhaps query I've got is several times I have asked Councillor Smith if there's been any update, and he's had no update to give me, and then all of a sudden I'm produced with the document, which to me seemed, I've got nothing against it, please don't get me wrong, because I've read it and I totally agree with it, but it just seemed that as a subcommittee we were called in right at the very beginning, and then we've had nothing. I think didn't you sit on the subcommittee as well, Gary? I don't know. But we don't seem to have had much communication towards the end. But no, it's a good report, and thank you to the staff. I know how difficult it was in the beginning.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Actually, this very conversation was raised up at scrutiny, and what was said at scrutiny was that whilst the overall specification of the contract and everything else was put together with the help of the working party, once we entered into the procurement process, then it became commercially sensitive and couldn't be shared, and even Councillor Smith didn't have much access to more than you guys had at the outset. I mean, he understood the direction we were going, and he was making sure that things were moving forward, but we didn't know who was bidding and still don't know who bid. We only know who was a successful bidder. And you're right, you know, Councillor Smith was initially part of that working party along with Councillor Scott and yourself. Two of the cabinet members, two of those members became cabinet members, which also made it a little bit more difficult. And at the end, there was, I think you can probably recognise this, a bit of a poor turnout for those committees. But it came to a natural end. It was actually recognised by the committee that there wouldn't be any more meetings at that point. And this is as quick as an update we could have given you. So apologies for that if you don't think it was quick enough. Councillor Bray, did you have your hand up? Councillor Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there's a couple of bits. Firstly, I think Councillor Smith made reference to it in his speech that you read out, and that's around the service being monitored. I think it's fair to say that the old service we had, either through waste collection or street cleaning, there were issues. And I think reference was made to the fact that this will be monitored. Can I ask how precisely it's going to be monitored? And is there going to be some kind of report generated during the contract that feeds back to things like the Scrutiny Committee or Jane's Committee, how things are going?
Okay. I'm going to defer to one of our officers. Because I want to make sure we get the answer right. I do know some of the detail, but obviously Councillor Smith was the one that knew the exact detail around that. So I'm going to go to Mr. Clark, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just so we answer that question, there'll be built into the contract. There's a quarterly meeting with the contractor. This will be attended by high-level sort of officers from their side and from our side, and they will be presenting to us a report on their performance during that quarter, on which questions and various things can be asked, and then there'll be the sort of ongoing day-to-day monitoring by the team. We also have increased access to data around when certain visits and actions are undertaken, so that basically there'll be more monitoring than what we have in place currently, and that's all built into the contract.
So for the second part of my question on that, will there be some kind of report generated that goes to the committee so we'll be aware of the issues that have been raised and the responses that have been given by the contractor?
Yes, I don't see any reason why that can't be fed back, and it could be that it's done through a member working group. Again, that could be set up again, and there could be a feedback to that group, maybe on a 6-monthly or annual basis, or even at scrutiny. So,
Thanks very much for that. I've only got one other
Sorry,
question.
I'm just going to bring Mr. Davis in. I think he's got some more to ask, and then I can take the next question.
Sorry, Councillor Hunter, just to add to that is there will be a contract manager in place, so it will give a coordinated point that the structure in which we're working with the contractor will also be coordinated, and then as Tim says, is then we can have, we can set up a system whereby we have some periodic feedback with members.
Okay, thanks very much for that.
And I'm going to add to that. I mean, I'm not 100% what it's called, but there is a board that meets every quarter where that information is going to be fed into. Looks like Mr. Williams was probably going to say the same thing, so I'm going to go over to him.
Thank you. Yeah, I was. It's just really to also bring to your attention that on the quarterly meetings, the portfolio holder is part of those meetings. It's not just officers, it's also the portfolio holder who'll be monitoring that performance as well.
Thanks very much for that. That's just a clarification, and it's more around the way the report is written. I wanted to get it straight. We talk about, and it's on page 29 again, Councillor Smith referred to the figures there about the increases on table 2 to the cost of it. So my understanding, and just to make sure, over the 3 years we're talking about a total cost, which is obviously the increase plus what we'd already budgeted for. The total cost will be 29.946 million. Is that correct?
In that information, so 29. I can't pick that out at the moment.
Sorry, can I just check on that one? We're all just trying to look. So at the bottom of page 29, there's table 2. Is that the one you're looking at? Okay, so if I can claim that, so that's the net contract cost over existing budgets. So you've got the existing budget of what we'd obviously with the revenue, and then in addition you've got the additional cost because obviously as we're highlighting, the revenue cost is increased to what we're there. Part of that is due to the additional requirements and the Environment Act, and part of that's due to increased costs in terms of for the new contract. So that's a combination of those things coming together, and that's the total cost. As it says previously in there, we had already allocated 2.74 million for compensating, because we knew that there would be increased costs, and then that identifies the 3-year cost for the 3 years, plus then it's +1 +1. So obviously if it went into the +1 +1, then that figure would be extended. I think
that's as I understand it. So my question is, does that make the total 29.946 million?
I'm just trying to check back on what the original base figure is. Richard, is that?
Oh, I see what you've done.
Yeah, so you're taking the additional cost and adding it to what the original was. Oh, sorry, yeah.
What I'm trying to do is get a complete cost.
I don't know what the original was.
I accept that you've budgeted for the as it stands, but the numbers you're talking about are the increases that the new contract will cost over the 3 years. So what I'm saying is the sum total of the budget, the 29, etc.
Right. So
does that make sense?
Following what you've done, so you've taken the single annual figure of 7.529 million, times it by 3, and then added the extra money on to come to your 29 million. I'm looking for a 29 million. I'm like, I can't see it on here. Now it makes sense.
That's my point.
You've done some maths that you didn't explain to us.
I can't see the 29 million in there. That's why I'm asking, have I got it right?
Yes, I mean over the contract, and that's what makes it one of the largest contracts, in fact the largest contract that the council deals with. So I haven't checked your maths, but it looks close enough. If you say it's 29 point something million, then I must, based on the figures in front of me, yes, absolutely. Hey, Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. More observations than anything else. Firstly, I want to congratulate officers for getting through this. This was a bit of a treacle job, wasn't it? Really, it was long and detailed, and so congratulations on that. It must be particularly hard, particularly as some of the figures are as yet unknown. We've got the fair funding review, we've got the future business rates reset, whatever that is. And we don't know the outcome of those, and so I know in the agenda there's conversation that this won't affect frontline services, but I find it difficult in the current climate to believe that we can pay an extra £7 million somewhere and not affect something somewhere along the lines. We shall see. And that sort of was reinforced by the fact that the very next item that we look at mentions this item right at the very beginning as, you know, affecting it. So it's a very large sum of money. But I do congratulate everybody getting the end of it. It's very, very difficult, and I appreciate that. I'm a little sad, and I will say I'm a little sad, because I am kicking on a bit. Some of you might have noticed that. Thank you. But for the vast majority of my life, we managed to collect everybody's bins every week. For the vast majority of my life. And here we sit as a first world country in 2025, paying the highest taxes in the free world. And we can't manage to collect everybody's bins every week. Now, that's not this council's fault. That is absolutely not this council's fault. But we do find ourselves, and I don't want to be political because I think it's governments of every colour, so I'm not going to be political about it, I really do think that. But it is quite sad that in a first world country we can't manage that simple, small thing. Sort of epitomises where we are. And I worry that we will continue to find ourselves expected to do more work and given less money to do it with. But overall, I think we've come out of this as well as we could, given the circumstances, and absolutely congratulate those involved in putting this together. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you very much. And as you quite rightly say, one of the biggest contracts, you can't see how it does. But this isn't something that just sprung on us last week. You know, we've seen this coming for quite some time. In fact, any council should be aware of long, expensive contracts that are coming to their end, you know, 2 or 3 years in advance. In fact, I think the process for this is quite lengthy, you know, to deliver a contract of this size. And so we'd already started putting money aside for things like that. So if you look on page 30, you can see table 3, which outlines where we got 4.9 million of the money. And we also had an outturn last year. We put away money to coincide for this. But that's how it hasn't affected frontline services. In fact, not knowing was the reason why it affected, you know, because we didn't know what the number was until only quite recently. And I think that has now been a bit of a relief to us because we know what the number is and we can work to that. Not knowing is always a problem. Like you say, we've got the budget coming, 2 years, so we're going to talk about that in the next item. So I'll leave it there, but I think, you know, it doesn't affect frontline services as much as you might think. So, Councillor Placey.
Just a small item, really. I know that a lot of residents in Tendring are going to welcome the glass collection, curbside glass collection. So many people to speak to me about that they can't get to the bottle banks, so they have to throw their glass in the bin. So win-win, isn't it? They're going to get their collection and we're going to pay recycle rates. So I just wanted to put a positive on it. Thank you.
I'm going to go with Councillor Cox next.
Thank you, Leader, and having been one of the responsible portfolio holders throughout this piece, I'd like to pay my tributes to the partnership working that has taken place throughout this contract, the work being done to set up this contract. And it's, you know, our officers here have gone beyond the call of duty to get us where we are. But it's not just our officers. If you think about the work that we did with the East of Essex Local Government Association, our procurement work with the Essex Procurement Partnership, we've had our officers, our cabinet members, the work that Overview and Scrutiny has done. And I think it's quite good if that amount of partnership working that has gone on to get us where we are is something that needs to be applauded. And I give my thanks. It's been hard at times, given the changes that have had to be made, you know, halfway through this when LGR was done, but we've managed to climb that mountain and come up with the contract we've got. And I think the other important thing about this contract is that we're able to meet those future requirements under the Environment Act, and we're well set to do that. And I take Councillor Bray's point earlier about successive governments making points around, us, a first world country not being able to collect things weekly. That's where we are, unfortunately. But I understand that his party want to cut spending for local government, so that makes that more interesting for me. But we don't get political, but I think Mr. Bray was being political, so I think sometimes those political things need to be answered.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to raise a couple of points about the report, and I think it's on page 19 on the digital copy. It's the first line of the executive summary. We're going to be providing residents with this contract. Yes, it's going to cost more. Everything's going to cost more, unfortunately. Things go up. But we're going to provide residents with an enhanced recycling collection service alongside the continuation of fortnightly residual waste. This Cabinet, this administration made a commitment that we would not go to 3 weekly, regardless of what some people say outside. Oh, it's going to happen. No, it's not. It's going to be every 2 weeks. Yes, occasionally some get missed, but we have a procedure in place to alleviate that. And weekly food waste collection and all the other stuff that's in there. So if any residents are watching, it's going to be every 2 weeks. It's not going to be more than that. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, Leader. Yeah, a lot of comments been covered. I just want to say that the officers have done an awful lot of work. People out there don't realise how difficult it is to work a contract like this, to make it really, really good, improve our recycling rates in tendering, make it more easier for residents to recycle glass, plastic. Yeah, it's a win-win, and I think it's really good that we have a contract that's serving our district really, really well in the future, going forward to protect our environment too. Thank you.
Scott. Okay, I think I'm going to draw this to a close, but my comments on this, some have already been captured. So I think I'm going to leave it with this. Oh. Mr. Davis.
Sorry, thank you. Can I just say thank you very much indeed for the comments around staff, as kind of like with the other title, Head of Paid Services. It really is appreciated, because yes, we see the bright shiny things, and we'll talk about some of those, and they're fantastic, and it's great to see, etc. But doing some of this day job stuff, doing this thing and which is months and months of hard work, months and months of work, and I just want to pay tribute to Corporate Director Damien Williams, to Tim Clark, who have, you're going to have things on here about housing, you're going to have things on here about environment, you're going to have things on here about coastal. They come to them each time. So as a small council, it's not about, we have a team who we're very proud of and doing all the waste. That is part of a myriad of other things which they do. So I just kind of wanted to pay tribute to them and thank them, and also for the work which we will be talking about in priorities, talking about the other, because in other venues, housing is so important to our members, quite rightly. In other venues, the work which is doing about the environment, about the seafront, the coastal, about the coastal repairs, and in this instance we're talking about the waste, so I'm highlighting Damien and Tim. In many others, there's many other officers who are multitasking all the time. It's also about our backroom staff who are, whether it be finance, it be our legal, whether it be our administration, all those things, they are juggling so many. So I just wanted to highlight that and thank you. And I just sort of pick up one final one is that during the course of the week, Dave Ballard, who's is our governance officer, did a very, very good talk about fraud in the council. And the enthusiasm of some of those officers in terms of what they're doing in the back, but they're actually also making a huge difference to people's lives, bringing council houses back into our stock, because people who have not supposed to have them they are finding them and bringing them back in, and that is making the sorts of difference to our residents' lives day in, day out, from people who are not seen in the public. So thank you for your comments. It is appreciated, and just recognising just how many staff there are doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson, and once again I fell into your trap of letting you go before me. So I'm going to just pretend you didn't. So I was going to say, picking up all of Cabinet's comments around our staff, and I'm recognising that this is a whole of council operation when they do a contract to this size. From the contract, which deals with our legal, to the finance, which we have to make sure, and then why not? Let's just say, and Damien and Tim, who have done an excellent piece of work on this. And I think sometimes you can say, well, it is business as usual. The contract's got to be done. And I'm like, yeah, I'd agree with you perhaps. But then you talk about a £20 million LUF project, you talk about £20 million CRP, then you talk about LGR, and all of a sudden, all of that work still has to be accommodated on top of the BAU. And to deliver this document today, the report that we got today, for me is outstanding. And when Adrian and I put the word immense, we actually truly meant that. And it is, from a Cabinet, our great thanks for the dedication and professionalism and the attributes to delivering this report that the staff have delivered. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Okay, what did you say?
Nothing.
So it's been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Henderson. Can I get an agreement, please? Agree. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 9 is the Cabinet Members' Report of Corporate Finance and Governance, me, and I'm doing the Finance Report for 25-26, general update to the end of September 2025. As per usual, I've written some notes down, so I'll just read them out as I always do. As is usually the case, these reports contain quite a bit of information, but it's important as they provide us with timely and comprehensive updates to our overall financial position. With this in mind, I will leave it for people to review the detail, and if there are any queries or questions, then do please ask. The reason I say this is because I want to use my brief introduction to the report to highlight 2 important issues, especially after the waste and street cleansing discussion we've just had. The first important point is about the financial crossroads we've arrived at, not only due to the waste and street cleaning contract, but also due to the fact that as Tendring District Council, we have only potentially 2 budget cycles left until the new Unitary Council comes into being from the 1st of April 2028. Although we eagerly await the outcome from the Government's Fair Funding Review in December, the underlying challenge we see in the current forecast is that annual increases in income do not currently cover the annual increases in expenditure. This therefore does not provide any financial headroom against which to consider investing in our priorities, for example. Such expenditure therefore has to be funded via the one-off money we currently hold. However, the amount we wish to spend on our priorities competes against other costs, such as our business as usual activities and associated cost pressures. Therefore, I will be working with the portfolio holders and officers over the next few weeks with the aim of putting tendering in the best possible place, bringing together a 2-year financial plan. This plan will seek to balance those various and competing elements of the forecast via the allocation of the limited one-off money we currently hold. If we get it right, it will enable us to continue to meet the various financial challenges we face, whilst at the same time protect frontline services. The second important point largely underlines my first point, and that is in the in-year position today and our underlying base budgets. We have worked really hard over recent years to react and respond as timely as we can to a range of issues, which in turn has put us in a strong financial position. The in-year budget to date is therefore broadly performing to the base position, and along with our approach to the waste and street cleansing contract, it forms our financial foundations that in turn underpins the success of our proposed 2-year financial plan. Our continuing strong financial stewardship approach therefore aims to continue to meet the ongoing expectations of our residents and businesses and provides a strong financial legacy against what our new Unitary Council can successfully build on in future years. Thank you very much. I've moved it. That's my little speech. I think I need a seconder. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Leader. And in seconding the Q2 finance report, I reiterate the fact that we find ourselves in an interesting place financially. We have funded fully the new waste and street cleansing contracts, and we eagerly await the outcome from the government's fair funding review in December. The point that we as Tendring District Council have potentially just 2 budget cycles left is well made and puts the next 2 years into sharp focus. Although the next 2 years will be a challenge, we should benefit from the government's commitment to a 2-year funding deal, and I think the leader's idea that we should set ourselves a 2-year funding deal is a 2-year plan is a good one. And along with our proposed 2-year financial plan, we can continue with our successes and leave a sound financial position that we can all be proud of ahead of the inception of a new unitary council from 2020 and 2028. And I'm happy to second the financial report and support the recommendations in the report. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. So it's been moved and it's been seconded. I'm happy to open up to the floor. Are there any questions? Okay, fair enough. In that case, I'll move straight to the recommendations, and the recommendations are on page 42 and 43. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Are we in agreement? Agreed. Thank you very much. And that brings me to item number 10, Leader of the Council's items, highlight priority actions for 25-26, and this is the monitoring report at the half-year point and the proposed priorities to the 31st of March 2028. And the Pride in Place programme. So there's a lot going on today, so you have to excuse me while I catch it with this. I'm happy to submit this report to Cabinet, which has 3 parts to it. Firstly, it provides the update on the priorities we adopted in March of this year. Secondly, it sets out an intention to reset the priorities for the Council for the period to 31st of March 2028. And thirdly, it refers specifically to the UK Government's Pride in Place programme, where the Council is supporting the Clacton Town Board in developing its vision and investment programme. In relation to the first element of the report, it sets out the massive amount of work the Council has delivered in the first 6 months of this financial year. This is incredible given how much effort we have also had to dedicate to local government organisation with other councils across Essex. To pick out a few of these, there was the transfer of Careline, 4 words, but a great deal of work to support its service users, their families and staff, to ensure that vital services continue to be delivered in the wider partnership with Colchester. Then there was the adoption of our new health and wellbeing strategy, with partnership working at its heart, consultation and engagement, and then listening to what partners told us. The approval of the crime and disorder strategy, which was adopted by full council and sets out the priorities for actions to improve the safety and security of residents locally. And who can forget the delivery of the highly successful Clacton Air Show 2025, bringing hundreds of thousands of visitors to enjoy the festival and the coastline here. That's just a flavour of what's set out in this report. The second part of this report identifies that now is exactly the right time to reshape those priorities and transition to a set of priorities for the remaining 2 and a bit years that this council will be in place before new unitaries take the reins of the service in 2028. We have said at the beginning of LGR that there will be focused on leaving tendering in the best possible place for that transition to the unitary. This has not changed. Time is not long, and it is vital that we recognise this by adopting the priorities for that period. These are now set out in Appendix B and set the strategic approach to the Council over that period. There is much within Appendix B, and the opportunity to look critically at the Council's funding envelope over that period can now be taken. We yet don't have the full outcome of the UK Government's fair funding review, and we anticipate also that we are provided with a settlement figure for the government funding over the same 2 years. So aligning these supports a prudent approach to the next 2 years. Out of all the priorities going forward, I've ensured that the commitment to business as usual is in these priorities. Preserving frontline services is a commitment we can and should give to our residents. The uncertainty about LGR brings could lead to concerns, and so alongside the progress proposed in other priorities, it is useful to set out our assurance to residents that frontline services they rely on will be maintained. Lastly, this report provides an opportunity to confirm that as a council we have a critical role as a partner, deliverer, influencer, and as an accountable body in the delivering of the UK's Government Pride in Place programme for Clacton. And therefore I formally move the recommendations on page 88. Okay, I have moved that. I need a seconder. Councillor Baker.
Leader, I'm quite happy to second it. I think it's vitally important at this stage that we refocus what our priorities are on, or are, for the next 2 years before this council ceases to exist. And we've always said that because of LGR, we're going to leave tendering in the best possible place. You mentioned earlier all the projects that are going on. They're still going on, and business as usual is still going on. And within the refocused priorities or recast priorities, I think is the right way to go. So I'm quite happy to second this report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. So it's been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Baker. I'll open to the floor. Anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And I think it's just worth saying. I know we've heard a lot of very positive messages about our staff, but we're in a kind of mid-term situation, and when you look at these appendices on A and B that in this agenda item, which confirm our achievements to date and ensure that we have dealt with some very difficult issues, and that we have, in addition to that, we have written and implemented a whole host and variety of policies and strategies across all our portfolios. Now, as we've heard, we're in a good position to continue delivery. We've also heard about the work our staff have put in to get us to this position. And I think it is quite amazing how we maintain our capacity to deliver across so many different areas of service provision for our residents. And I think looking through the appendices, I mean, I can add from my portfolio point of view, leisure and public realm, that there are a number of initiatives and developments scheduled for next year, which will continue to add to good service delivery and prepare our district for local government reorganisation. And again, I don't think we can commend our staff enough, but I also like to commend my colleagues and cabinet colleagues for all their hard work. I don't think that should go unnoticed or unrecorded. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry, and thank you for the praise. Councillor Honeywood, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd like to ask about page 98, and that's to develop proposal to secure the long-term sustainability of housing revenue account. Way back in January 2025, I raised my concerns around other councils placing residents within tendering. And I highlighted the fact that the previous administration had challenged those councils who were doing that. And I asked the portfolio holder whether he'd be doing the same. And his response was, I haven't got the precise wording with me, but it was a conversation with officers and then make a decision on that. I wondered if he'd had that conversation with officers and if he'd made a decision on whether he intended to do that or not.
Thank you, Councillor Honeywood. Councillor Baker?
It's a conversation I have with officers on a regular basis as to, is there an impact on our residents with regard to other councils placing families here. I'm not going to go into any recent issues that have raised their heads because that would be inappropriate at this time, but I can have a conversation with you offline about that if you wish. No, I haven't written to London councils because I think when I sent you the email, whenever it was raised 2 or 3 months ago, we had, and this is going from memory, so forgive me if I get it wrong, I think we had 8 households from London. We did have a number from Colchester, which were higher, and you have the figure, and I think it was over 70. What that figure is at the moment, I don't know, but I will, after this meeting, ask officers to explore that and see if those figures have gone up or gone down. My main concern is that, or as we all know, homelessness is going up. The demand on this council, our colleagues, Colchester, Braintree, across the county, across the country, the demands are huge, and we are taking some steps, and we do have a working group that was set up early in the year to look at that. We also have the Spendles House, which is having an impact. We have at the moment, and I hope officers will nod in agreement, we do not have any families in bed and breakfast. We do not have any families in inappropriate accommodation. So my aim is to make sure that the accommodation that is provided as temporary accommodation and move-on accommodation as well, so if they go into private accommodation, rented accommodation, or they go into our own housing stock, is appropriate and is of a decent standard. I would love to be able to sit here and say, Councillor Honeywood, that we do not have a homelessness problem. That would be an achievement, wouldn't it? But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen in the next month or so. But it is something that I care about passionately, and I know that my colleagues on Cabinet, who are probably bore senseless occasionally about it, and officers, is that we need to make sure that we are doing the best for our residents. I've just had if you'll bear with me, someone has just provided me with some figures. So 60-ish in total, that's from outside the borough, the district. Only 5 in 2025 are from London and most are from Colchester. But what I will reiterate, and I've said this a number of occasions, we do not place anybody outside of tendering unless we absolutely have to, and that would normally be on safety grounds. So if somebody's fleeing domestic abuse, domestic violence, if it is appropriate, they will be placed outside the district, but that is the only time. And I make sure and push that that does not happen. Hope that's answered your question. I've gone into a bit other stuff, but I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. And I'd just like to add to that, I sit on the Temporary Homeless Working Group. I sit on the Temporary Homeless Working Group with Councillor Baker. And that's been meeting for over a year, almost every 2 to 3 weeks. And not once has other boroughs been an issue for our temporary accommodation. There are far greater issues than other boroughs causing us problems with our temporary homelessness and the increase on people finding it unavailable to have homes at the moment. So I think be interesting to see where you're going with that.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, when we had the discussion, it was at the scrutiny committee, and it was around the numbers that were being placed here by Colchester. And at that meeting, I also asked, because you felt the numbers being placed here by Colchester were not unreasonable, how many would be excessive? And to which your response was, again, I'm not quoting you exactly, but if we could not find any temporary accommodation in tendering for our residents, is that still your bar, if you like, for saying that residents outside the area being placed here is the point at which it becomes unreasonable? The reason I'm bringing this up is we're talking about the sustainability of the housing revenue account.
Going to come to Mr. Davison next.
Can I just clarify something? So out of placement, councils which put placements in tendering, they pay for. So it's not coming out of our HRA in terms of the temporary accommodation and the accommodation. So the fact that they're placing them here, there'll be the other issues around sort of, what stresses do that put on services, but it's not the temporary accommodation and the housing cost falls to the originating authority. And just picking up one other thing is that, and I know I'm something they're aware, and I think you were involved in this in the early doors, Councillor Honeywood, But we did set up a work group with the London authorities, led by the London councils, and it was the previous leader actually. We went with a meeting to them, and then we, with Essex County's officers, worked that through to have a memorandum of understanding. And I think that there are certain requirements when out of district, borough, whichever it might be, are placing. There are certain requirements. So, for example, there are issues around if they're moving something to safeguarding, then the receiving authority, and in this case it would be Essex County Council from London, should be notified because of the risks. There are certain other categories which I won't go into, but you can kind of guess what they are if their placements are there. That was drawn up in a charter. Now, whilst it was actually in the MHCLG and previous ministries' requirements, that was actually drawn up in a charter, and we had that. As a result of that work, I wouldn't say it was perfect in terms of notification, but certainly and I work with the lead for housing at Essex County Council. I was only speaking to Funny Enough about this a week or so ago. That has no doubt improved. It will never be perfect because there will be different individuals doing it, but actually overall there's been improvement. But just going back to your original question, the cost for those placements sits with the originating authorities.
I understand that, but it's the same with any area when demand exceeds supply, prices rise. So there's that to be taken into consideration. So my concern was around what appears to be the current administration's policy, that if we can't find any accommodation, that's when other areas placing their residents here becomes excessive. Yes, we did a lot of work on London boroughs, and I think that was very successful under the previous administration. But the point that raised this was, at the time, was Colchester placing here, and I was concerned with that very question, that if we've got nothing left, put it in blunt terms, if we've got nothing left, it then becomes excessive. I'll put on record, I don't agree with that. I think we should put our residents first. I didn't agree with the policy where we introduced, it's okay to place our residents in caravans. So what I'm asking is that still the view of this administration, that if we cannot find any temporary accommodation for our residents, it's then excessive? Or has that position changed?
Councillor Baker.
Chairman, if I can, and I haven't scribbled all the questions down, there's a lot there to take in. But your first statement was you were going to ask about the sustainability of the housing revenue account. Homelessness, as you know, is supported by the General Fund. So it doesn't affect the HRA. Councils outside the district, other councils that place homeless or people into temporary accommodation in this district don't have access to our housing stock. So the HRA wouldn't count because they won't have the residency criteria. Therefore, there's no impact. They also have, as you're aware, placing councils, so councils outside the district who place people here in temporary accommodation have a 2-year obligation to support that placement. A few of those placements in temporary accommodation will eventually go into private rented, as ours do. With regard to the policy, and you mentioned caravans, that was a one-off. And that was the reason it was a one-off was because it was an extremely large family. They were not there long. They were probably there too long because they were homeless, and I'd rather they weren't homeless. But they were put in on a caravan site into 2 suitable caravans for a period of time because there was nothing else suitable. They are not there. They have not been there for a while, probably over a year. So I had concerns when that was raised by, I think it was Councillor Platt at full council some months ago. That evening I made some inquiries and that was why. And it was, like I say, a one-off. I think I'll leave it there because Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Baker.
Could I have an answer to my question, please?
I'm going to talk to it a bit myself. When you talk about the council's policies, I think in this very document we talk about the LCTSS and we talk about the second homes tax, and that's put 138 homes back into the supply. You talk about, Mr. Davison earlier talked about one of our officers who's also worked on the fraud and put extra. So I don't think it's fair to say that our policy is to favour other people over our own residents. I think there's more you want to ask for here, and as you are the scrutiny chairman, I think this is one of the things that if you want to, by all means bring it to your scrutiny. So, but I think I'm going to move us on. So.
What I'm saying is, it's a simple statement that was made by the portfolio holder for housing at a public meeting, and I'm asking if that's still the situation, and nobody's answering.
Councillor Honeywood, I'll get you a written answer. Thank you very much. So it's been moved, seconded. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. On to item number 11, which is the report of the Economic Growth, Regeneration and Tourism Portfolio Holder, Councillor Henderson. And we're going to be talking about the Community Regeneration Partnership Programme update and reallocation of funding. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Leader. And before I start, I'm quite lucky to be able to talk about the opportunities for these, as the Chief Executive just said, bright, exciting, shiny things, which there are a huge number of them. And when we were just talking about priorities, if you saw the list of things within that priorities before I make this statement, we're talking about delivering over £70 million of investment with match funding into this district, which has got to be a good thing when you look at the whole round of what that will deliver. Leader, I'll go on to make this statement. This report outlines the next steps for delivering the Community Regeneration Partnership Programme funded by the government, which incorporates a number of projects across Clacton-on-Sea and Jaywick Sands, being delivered by the Council and our partners Essex County Council and East Suffolk and North Essex Foundation Trust. I'm pleased to report that real progress has been made on several of these projects, with funding for 6 of these now defrayed as per regulations set out by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Funding has been transferred to Essex County Council to provide equipment for the new skills centre at the Clacton Hub, which will form part of the Clacton Library redevelopment. It will also support improvements to the public realm in Clacton Town Centre and upgrades to bus infrastructure in Clacton and Jaywick Sands. You may have already seen the progress outside the Sunspot and the Never Say Die. Similarly, the first instalment of funding has been transferred to SNEFT to support the provision of a new urgent treatment centre in Clacton Hospital, something that the residents will certainly be welcoming. For TDC-led projects, consultants have been appointed to develop a cultural, and I'll say it, and that's a lovely word, master plan for Clacton Town Centre, and have begun their preparatory work. In addition, we have awarded grants to 3 local groups to provide community transport vehicles, enabling residents to access vital appointments, training and education opportunities. In actual fact, while I was driving over here today, I'm sure I saw the first U-turn youth bus travelling around Clacton, a bright, shiny bus which young people are going to benefit from within this district, and it will serve the whole of the district. One of these minibus, I've just said it, is already on the road, with the other 2 scheduled to be in use next year. Connections Community Transport in Harwich being a beneficiary, and Tendring Community Transport in this part of the district being a beneficiary. Dedicated teams are now progressing the remaining projects, and we are on track to demonstrate a substantial start and commitment as required by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. This report focuses on reallocating funding within the programme, with recommendations based on work by teams who have assessed the full scope of the project selected by MHCLG. The proposed funding allocation retains the balance between Clacton-on-Sea and Jaywick Sands, ensuring there is no reduction in the investment for Jaywick Sands. We recognise the challenges the area faces, which were once again outlined in the Indices of Multiple Deprivation report, which was published last month. If this reallocation is approved, it will enhance the positive impact for residents and communities in Clacton and Jaywick Sands, ensuring we maximise this once-in-a-generation opportunity for regeneration for this district. And before I move the recommendation on page 119, Leader, can I draw members' attention to a slight mistake? If you look at the bottom of the page, C, that says C, that's subject to C above. It should be subject to B above, just to bring that to your attention, members. I'm therefore more than happy and proud to be able to move this recommendation to the Cabinet and members overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and as usual, you gave it the usual energy that you put into all the things in your portfolio holder. I'm happy to second this one. I'm not going to say much more because you've picked it up, but there are some things that I'm looking forward to, and that's the Clacton Centre, Town Centre and public realm improvements. The shop improvements, which we only heard yesterday, had outstripped its allotted funding, and we've now got a reserve list going there, and we still encourage people to apply to that. That will make our shops and high streets that much better. And also, we've got the Jaywick Sands Public Open Spaces programme, which I'm looking forward to see what that delivers, and the Active Wellbeing Centre down at the Leisure Centre, which will be a massive boost for the residents around our cycling and everything else. So I won't say much more. You've already covered quite a bit of it. I'm happy to second it. So it's been moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by myself. Do I have any other comments? Councillor Honeywood.
It's just a query, and it might be around the name, so I'm sort of seeking clarification. We're talking about the Healthy Homes, which I think is 1006. Is this the originally is this the one we started under the previous administration? It was NHS funded alongside Tendring Council, and the plan was to start in Jaywick Sands and then move on, if there was sufficient time or money available, for Walton and possibly Parkston. So I might have not remembered this correctly. If I remember rightly, it was about a 2-year project. Is this the same one we're talking about here?
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. The Healthy Homes Initiative, yes, is the one which based in the Enterprise Centre in Jaywick. And let me take you back to the funding agreements within this. The £20 million, which has been provided by the government, was after a deep dive by civil servants from the government who came here and decided on the back of some of the consultation with residents that how the money would be spent and targeted on these different projects. So your comments about perhaps moving to other places, we couldn't use this money for that. This is dedicated for Jaywick, as I'm sure everyone welcomes that, to actually do the valuable work that we need in Jaywick under that Healthy Homes. And I know, having spoken to them, they're really keen on proceeding down that route to try and make things as better as possible they can for the residents.
It was just clarification, because the way it reads, it was very similar to we started, as I said, that was a sort of NHS funded, and we were using the Enterprise Centre, and we hoped that there would be Once Jaywick was completed, there'll be time to look at Walton and then move on to Parkston. So it's just me I think the Healthy Homes title is what's made me get a little bit, I'll put it confused about where we are and where it's originated from, that's all.
For Jaywick, I believe it says in the report, it will be eventually renamed Healthy Buildings Initiatives, and you'll see, if you look, and that shows you quite clearly on, I think it's page 139, where all of the projects are itemised and the costs and the money that's been reallocated to different things within those projects. You'll see that all outlined. But this particular project will have an increase now, which was originally 200,000, but it will be 300,000. 100,000 of that will be capital, which will refurbish all of those enterprise centre buildings which people rely on for services, including the healthy buildings and healthy homes, whatever we're now going to call it. But also there'll be 200,000 there, and you'll see that there's a further on in the report, there's a project initiation document being produced to see how we can bring in more enforcement with Healthy Homes, dealing with that, healthy buildings, dealing with that. Because members have often said to us around the council that we need to step up our enforcement. We believe this money, and if we get it right and we bring in a process that we can use to support those healthy buildings, that Healthy Buildings Initiative for the future, we can bring in more enforcement to possibly make the landlords do more of what they should be doing. But also, if we get it right and we're legally allowed to, we can possibly clear some of the grot spots which people keep going on about, which draws attention to the area and literally drags the area down. So we can possibly be making all sorts of new things. But as the leader said, I think one of the other exciting parts is this open space investment. We can make a number of spaces around Jaywick more, if you like, enjoyable and more accessible for residents to see and make their quality of life a lot better.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I don't think there's any other comments. Can I have an agreement on that one, please? Recommendations, thank you. Cabinet members, we're sorry to Councillor Henson, when he was doing his open speech, we were discussing that we may possibly not have approved the previous report, so we're just going to do that again, just for the record. So we're going back to item number 10, he says to himself, and this is the Highlight Priorities Actions Report, Monitoring Report, which was moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Baker. Can I have an agreement by the Cabinet? Thank you very much. And I will now move us on to item number 12, which is the report of the Corporate Finance and Governance Portfolio Holder, me, the Local Council Tax Support Scheme, Discretionary Council Tax Exemptions, Discounts, Premiums for 26-27, and Annual Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statement for 26-27. And you'll find that on pages 141 to 194. As usual, I have some written words, and I'll keep them brief. So, as set out within the report, we are proposing to keep everything the same as this year. This includes the council tax premium on second homes. Following the introduction of the council premium on second homes from the 1st of April 2025, we are seeing the change that was intended, with properties being brought back into use as people's main residence. Although some second homeowners may wish to continue to pay the premium, it is hoped that this trend continues and more properties are occupied as the sole or main residence throughout the year. That in turn increases the permit population. That in turn supports the local economy. Some second homeowners have been in touch with this year with a summary of their comments and feedback set out in the report. Although their feedback is appreciated, the government has introduced a number of exceptions that aim to address such issues consistently at a national level, rather than requiring any significant local intervention. Having said that, the position across the range of discounts and premiums are subject to annual review, and we can always consider revisions if local circumstances change during the year. Our overall approach of keeping everything the same as this year is aimed at bringing certainty and financial stability to our residents, which remains an important priority, especially given the ongoing financial challenges faced by households within the district. Thank you very much. That's me moving it, and I am looking for a seconder. Councillor Placey.
Thank you. I'm happy to second this report, Leader, and it's helpful that we can maintain the same level of financial support to our residents, along with keeping a number of incentives that aim to maximise the use of existing housing within the district. I am sure some councils may look at reducing the level of support provided to households, especially if they are faced with significant budget deficits. But given our strong financial management, as discussed earlier on the agenda, our own financial position enables us to maintain the help we currently provide to our residents. And this is something that we will look to maintain right through to the end of March 2028, when everything moves over to the new Unitary Council to make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Placey. It's been moved and seconded. I open the floor to comments and questions. Okay, in that case, I'm going to go to the recommendations on page 142 and 143. It's been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Placey. Can I get an agreement, please?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item number 13 is the Cabinet report of the Environment and ICT portfolio holder. That would have been Councillor Smith. Unfortunately, as previously explained, he's not here, and this is the adoption of the Essex-wide air quality strategy, and he's given me some notes for which he would like me to read out. And it starts. This report seeks Cabinet approval for the adoption of the Essex-wide air quality strategy for 2025 to 2029. The strategy was unanimously supported by the Essex Chief Executives Forum and supported by Essex County Council's Cabinet on the 9th of September 2025. The final strategy was published on the Essex Air website at the end of October 25, and details are included in the report you have before you. The strategy has been developed jointly by all Essex District, Borough and City and Unitary Councils, including Southend and Thurrock, via the Essex Air Quality Consortium, and it aims to complement existing local air quality action plans and provide an overarching strategy for the county. There has been a consultation where 82% of respondents felt improving air quality was important and 75% was concerned about health impacts. 83% supported the draft version, and all four draft aims in the strategy received over 80% support. 10 proposed actions, including air quality monitoring, limiting the impact of number of developments, and partnership working, were well supported. The strategy strengthens partnership working and ensures a coordinated approach to tackling air pollution across Essex. In particular, the strategy supports our council's corporate themes of championing the local environment, improving quality of life, and pride in the area. It should also be noted all local authorities must publish an air quality strategy every 5 years, and the adoption of the Essex-wide strategy fulfils our statutory requirements under the Environment Act of 1995 and other relevant legislation. I therefore propose the recommendations set out on page 196. So I'm happy to move that on behalf of Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Leader. Following from what the Leader has just said, I'm happy to second the recommendations as written. Good air quality is increasingly being recognised as a key contributor to healthy living, and it is good to see that the strategy explains that air quality will continue to be monitored and that strategic actions will be taken to ensure ongoing air quality improvement. All these actions will be supported during the public consultation on the strategy. I look forward to hearing about how the strategy is being implemented, and I would recommend that everyone takes a good look at the Essex website that includes lots of information on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. So it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Scott. I open the floor to questions and comments. Nope. In that case, I am happy to move the recommendation on page 196. Can I get an agreement, please? Agreed. Which takes us to item number 14, management team items, and there are none for this meeting, which takes us to the date of the next scheduled meeting, which is 6 days before Christmas, Friday the 19th of December. I hereby close the meeting. Thank you very much.